So from Variety here, we have House of the Dragon boss says George R.R. Martin criticizing the show was disappointing. So a very interesting topic here to discuss. I was really kind of looking forward to talking about this one. I think it might be the first time I've talked about this on the channel, though I've been kind of following it pretty closely as it was happening. And this was around season 2, right? So when season 2 was ending, I think this was around the time when George R.R. Martin took to his blog post about the show, criticizing it. I mean, I think even one of my favorite lines from one of the posts, because I think there was multiple, but the big one of my favorite lines from it was, I think he was like talking about season 3, and he was alluding to, I think he said something along the lines, again, I'm not, I don't know the exact quote, but something along the lines of, if Ryan and the writers even know what they're doing, right, for the next season, or if they even have an idea of what they're going to do. So a very, a big jab at Ryan Condal, who, from all accounts, like, this was a great partnership, and I'm going to get into some of the quotes from Ryan Condal here. When they first partnered for this series and co-created it, it seemed like, George R.R. Martin liked him a lot. Ryan Condal really respected Martin. And so to see this fallout happen, and I just think it's such a fascinating story because, and I honestly have a lot of respect for Martin, to be honest, after this, because you never see this happen. Like, this never happens where, even if, maybe something like Nick Pizzolatto for True Detective recently, this also comes to mind, where it's kind of like the original creator of something where it's taken over by somebody and they don't really like what they're doing with it, and they actually publicly come out and comment or criticize it. Like, it just never really happens, right? Even if it is the case, even in Martin's case, did he really criticize or say much about Game of Thrones Season 8? Right? Maybe some things here and there and since then, but around the time, certainly not, right? So it's just kind of insane that he even publicly was maybe even allowed or even, had the courage to speak out about this. And to me, I think that I heard a lot of respect in my book, because I also, tend to agree with a lot of the criticisms that he said as well. So, and I will say, I have not read the books. I'm somewhat familiar with Fire and Blood, the material that, of course, the show is based on now. I know some of the major details in that, but I don't know all the details that he talks about in his blog post. But just the general kind of ideas that he puts forward and some of the things that he said, I can definitely, agree with. So anyways, so here we go, a little bit from the article here. So Ryan Condal told Entertainment Weekly that it was disappointing when George R.R. Martin came out swinging against the HBO series last year in a series of since deleted blog posts, right? And they were deleted. Of course, everybody archived them, so they're still there if you want to take a look at them. So it all started in late August when the Game of Thrones author wrote on his blog that he would soon post about everything that's gone wrong with House of the Dragon. The post arrived in September, calling out specific changes Condal and his team made during Season 2 that Martin did not support. Martin also warned that more toxic tweaks would be made in Season 3. So I think that's the quote I remember where he, said something like, if Ryan and the writers even know what they're doing for Season 3, which, that's an insane thing to publicly say, about this show that is adapting your material. So anyways, so Condal, so here are his quotes here after I guess this interview that I did. So it was disappointing, he said. I will simply say I've been a fan of A Song of Ice and Fire for almost 25 years now, and working on the show has been truly one of the great privileges of not only my career as a writer, but my life as a fan of science fiction and fantasy. George himself is a monument, a literary icon, in addition to a personal hero of mine, and was heavily influential on me coming up as a writer. So a lot of praise for him, right? So I guess they say that Condal frequently said was going to require a looser adaptation, Fire and Blood, since the book is not a traditional narrative. And that's fair, right? It's obviously a historical document almost of Martin, recalling what happened. So that makes sense. So he says, it's this incomplete history and it requires a lot of joining of the dots and a lot of invention as you go along the way. I will simply say I made every effort to include George in the adaptation process. I really did, over years and years. And we really enjoyed a mutual, fruitful, I thought, really strong collaboration for a long time. But at some point, as we got deeper down the road, he just became unwilling to acknowledge the practical issues at hand in a reasonable way. And I think as a showrunner, I have to keep my practical producer hat on and my creative writer, lover of the material hat on at the same time. So then, he kind of ends here. At the end of the day, I just have to keep marching on. Marching not only the writing process forward, but also the practical parts of the process forward for the sake of the crew, the cast, and for HBO, because that's my job. I can only hope that George and I can rediscover that harmony someday, but that's all I have to say about it. So those are the quotes from Ryan Condal. And that last thing, I don't know, like, to make a comment like that, if Ryan and the writers even know what they're doing, again, paraphrasing, obviously, but something like that doesn't sound like that is going to be a amicable, relationship. They'll be able to fix that going forward. I don't know. Obviously he deleted the blog post, so he probably regrets it, for some of the stuff he said, and that's completely fair. Or maybe just HBO, pressured him to delete it too. I mean, who knows what, contracts he signed and all that stuff, as well. But yeah, so I thought this was really fascinating to hear Condal say some of this stuff, and I don't know. I mean, I could see where he's coming from, right? It is this incomplete history, as he says. They do have to fill in a lot of the gaps, and I think to their credit, I think in season 1, a lot of people felt that they did a really good job with this, right? With being able to add so much to the story, especially with the time jumps and everything that they did in the first half of the, just the whole season, really, of season 1. But season 2, there was just some stuff in there that it even goes beyond, some of the more minute details and the stuff that Martin was really obsessed with, something like, I think, Maylor being in the show, and Condal and the writers have decided just to completely scrap them from the show, that character from the history, and some stuff like that, right? But even beyond that, it's just like these, Alicent to Rhaenyra during season 2, a lot of that stuff, Rhaenyra going to King's Landing to talk to her, and just everything like that just felt very disingenuous, right? If you're Condal, and some of the stuff he says here, about respecting the material so much, and being a fan for 25 years and all this kind of stuff, and you've worked with Martin, and the adaptation, what he wants, what his vision is, to do some of the stuff they did in season 2, like that stuff, it doesn't feel true to the material that he's adapting and that he's supposedly a huge fan of for 25 years, right? It just seems, some of the stuff that they were trying to do really just seemed to serve their own, desire to make a story about Rhaenyra and Alicent and the two queens, right? And kind of and put them together in that relationship, and it serves their own needs instead of really respecting the material and adapting it in an authentic, in a genuine way. Obviously you have to change things, but to me that's different, right, than what some of the stuff they did in season 2. So anyway, I don't know. I kind of come down on this on George's side. We'll have to see what they do for season 3. Though, again, with the quotes that Martin has said in some of those blog posts, from what I guess, he's has knowledge, obviously, of where, are kind of their general ideas for season 3, and he did not like them at all and thought, there would be even more problems. I think one of the quotes here was going to be more toxic in season 3. So that's really worrying to me, after season 1, which really exceeded my expectations for the show, where season 2 was really quite disappointing, not even mentioning, the fact that it didn't even have a finale, right? It ended at, episode 8 when there should have been 10 episodes. So even beyond that, there were some other issues there, and so yeah, I'm very worried for season 3, to be perfectly honest at this point. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens. But I really wanted to talk about this, and it's interesting to hear Condal finally, answering or addressing what Martin said about him. And I mean, it's very clear even from these comments, like, if their relationship had, been repaired, or, maybe they, Martin apologized to him or something like that, I don't even know if he would say some of this stuff or even really address it here. But the fact that he is addressing it and some of the stuff that he's saying really makes it pretty obvious that, like, him and Martin probably aren't even speaking anymore. Like, this relationship has really, really been torn apart. Obviously mainly from Martin, from his blog post, but even then, you could say it started when Condal stopped, respecting the material and taking a different direction with Fire and Blood and with the show House of the Dragon. So yeah, I mean, this is a really interesting one, but yeah, it's pretty clear that they are probably not even talking anymore, and that respect, that mutual harmony, or something that he said that they had, it seems to be gone. So anyways, we'll have to see what House of the Dragon Season 3 has in store for us, probably in 2026 then, next year it'll come out. And, at the very least, we'll see, what is it, the Battle of the Gullet, or something like that it's called, which is a massive battle, and we've already heard some news about how massive it is and how much they're putting into it. So at the very least, that should be very interesting, and should be some really great payoff for what we've seen so far. So anyways, love to hear your guys' thoughts on this, though, of the blog posts and this whole relationship, the falling out between Condal and George, and all the stuff that goes into this. So yeah, love to hear from you guys for sure on this one.